May 2nd, 2010. VGN Radio presents Midwest Wasteland with your hosts Kevin Baird,
Brian Baird,
and Larry Mack.
Tonight's topic, technology through the years. So, Cease...
Through the years...
Cease hasn't yet called me on the phone to tell me that he wants to be on the show, since his internet is now permanently broken on his computer, and he's probably not even at home.
Well, he shouldn't try strangling himself.
He permanently broke the internet.
He made a noose, tried to hang himself. He's like, "Fuck! I can't get this game."
Well,
I'm just.
I guess I could text him, but then he'll just tell me that he's not going to be on the show, and then I'll feel like the dick for asking. But let's see.
It's your fault.
Yeah. No. It's like fine. And Anderson says he has his kids, so not that that's unusual, I guess, but he said that he has the kids, and so that he'll just get on the show when he can get on the show.
Right.
But he feels like it.
Yeah. And
if it sounds like we're having a good time and he's not, he'll be here.
And our other brother Brad couldn't make it because he wrapped his car around the tree and is currently in the hospital. No, I don't.
Ooh, what? Huh?
No,
That's our mystery brother.
Yeah, Brian and I used to play a game where we used to have a mystery brother named Brad.
So either Brad or Mike, and he was in the Marines.
Yeah.
we had a whole life for that guy.
Just messing around with people. Because people who don't know us would always be like, "Yeah, I got another brother." But it's always good for excuses when you got to get out of stuff.
Then they would get confused because you guys do have another brother.
We just changed his name. Like, I thought his name was Rick. Rick. My brother tell you Rick? No. He's making shit up.
Yeah, or you just say no, and you look at them like they're dumb. No, don't be dumb.
Yeah. Who are you thinking about?
Because
they try to catch us lying, which they might have.
Okay, so we're talking about technology through the years, but before we get into that, let's just catch up with everybody. Brian, what's new? What's going on? Anything new?
No, not really. They're gonna add another stop to my run on Monday, so I'll have to actually be out for 2 nights in a fucking row, which sucks. But it'll pay me a little bit better. But aside from that, it just means more fucking on the road time, which now is fine. But come winter, I'll be hating, because that's winter. It's spooky. So
what is
I
this?
saw that movie.
Is
I
this
saw the movie Kick-Ass. What?
No, I'm just saying, is this extra route actually going to add
at least 100 miles? Yeah.
So your day gets longer, basically? Is that what happens?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
because I'm trying to. I usually can get home, and now there's no way. And I'd be lucky if I can make it to the border. I'm like, where the fuck am I going to sleep? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's great, thanks, dude. It's like, sure, whatever. Come on. So, and then I saw Kick-Ass, the movie, which was quite good. I was surprised by how goddamn good that movie was. And,
people seem to like it, yeah.
Fucking Christ, I can't fucking think of nothing else, really. Just the same old playing video games.
Okay. Larry? Anything new?
Let's see. Tuesday I went and saw Faith in the Muse, which I talked about a little bit in the forums, is like a spiritual experience, and I was moved and became better as a human being for it. And if you get a chance to see them, definitely do it, because it was just incredible. Then Wednesday I took my kids to see Lights and Owl City.
How was that?
And Lights is really subdued and kind of, low key, even on stage, even though she's all like giddy and happy and cute. Owl City,
it's all dramatic.
if you couldn't, she was really great without having a whole lot of a stage show. It was mostly just her playing with 2 backing musicians, but it was still good because she was still into it, and she's like got kind of a quirkiness to her that makes you care even without all the lights and craziness. Owl City was the exact opposite end of the spectrum, and it was good. My kids loved it, although they were complaining because apparently today's children don't know anything about general admission seating. So they're like, "Where do we sit?" Well, you stand here. Well, we can't see. Well, you got to fight your way up to the front. What? So they wanted to go sit up in the balcony.
To the death.
Yeah, but Owl City, I'll say this: really good performance, and I was surprised that if you've probably heard the one super uber smash hit Fireflies on the radio.
Yeah, my daughter loves the fuck out of them. So
I was shocked because considering how mellow and sedate the music is, the stage show is like really like crazy, upbeat, frigging high energy, high octane, and all that. But I will say, Layman.
Really gay?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a great show. There was like a hot keyboard chick, hot cello chick, hot guitar chick, and they were playing, and it was really, like I say, lights all over the place, really good performance, really good. And he'd like take a little break, and he'd be like, "How's everybody doing?" And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, they're chicks.
Why am I here? Yeah. Like Lights when she comes out was like, "It's my new song, Pink Flowers." Oh, it's like something out of like Danzig's Black Araya or whatever. Oh. You're like, this isn't right.
But that was good.
It's like a big rotating skull.
I just went out to a benefit for a local band.
You're all over the place. Look at you.
I am
living the life.
I am. It's a good time. It's good being Larry Mack. No, it's not. But
it's really boring being Brian Baird. Trust me.
Well, apparently Don Cease isn't going to even answer my text.
He's lying
because he's a bastard. So
everybody worships Brian.
No,
don't leave him. So how about you, Kevin? What did you do this week? And of course Friday I had my bowling banquet and got a bunch of free food and got a bunch of money and prize money and got I won some money because we always play cards after. So that was also a good night. I finished up my Friday making about $150, which is always a bonus.
Not bad.
No, I had a guy come out and look at my drainage easement. That was about the only thing that happened this week.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's not really exciting.
Your moat?
Yeah, my moat that washes small children down the sewer if they try to get into my yard. It's
Mommy, huh? Also, a bunch of little short guys come out.
Kevin's like, get off my grass, you damn kids! And he like flips a little lever next to this sliding glass door, and the dam opens.
The other children kind of go, "Oh look, Mommy, Oompa Loompas!"
Yeah,
they're cannibals. Actually,
it's just like a suction device right there. The kids, and it's gone, and it's the end of it. But yeah, that and then like a pool thing. But no, it's been I just been working. I got a lot of stuff to do. So there's not that much to talk about. But let's move on to the show. Cease apparently doesn't even want to answer my fucking text, so fuck him. Probably pretending he's asleep.
Okay, then I'm keeping his money from bowling.
I get a response from him in about an hour that he just woke up or something. So anyway, I guess we're gonna have a bit of a limited show. Technology through the years. Now, Brian, you're the oldest. You were born in the '60s, so you are
way back in the '60s.
Yeah, you were direct result of people smoking.
It's not like I popped out of my mom's vagina going, "What's on?"
Smoking marijuana and
free love.
Yeah.
But when you hear about the free love generation, Brian is the end result. That's what you get with free love.
So I have a bunch of different technology I figured we could all just sort of talk about. It's a little bit different this time than what we usually do on the show because I usually go, "What's your first memory of being an amoeba or something?"
We will compare 8-bit and 16-bit technology.
Yeah,
Brian?
That's.
I think the 16-bit is about twice as good.
So what I thought I would do is just ask, if
what's more expensive than the other.
Maybe your guys' first impressions of different things, or your impressions of different things during like different technologies that you ran across, and if you can think of anything. I know it's kind of a goofy subject. Also, we are live, and if you want to go to the chat room, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/VGN and join the other people in the chat. And if you want to get more information about this show, I don't know why you want to, and the other shows that we do, you can go to videogamenews.com, and the first post on the front page will tell you how to get this show and all the other shows. I did do a new Kevin's Old Blast Radio last night, so if you haven't picked that up yet, you definitely want to get that if you're into that show, because I thought it was pretty good. It was just a solo show. But I will say to the power of Oblast was that I was doing the show, And I said during the show, late in the show, that and in the future I'm going to be talking about the Australian viewpoint of World War II. And this guy wrote me an email. I got it this morning, and he said that he's Australian, and he did his master's thesis on the Australian side of World War II and wants to be on the show. So, cool.
Nice.
You know, you can't do better than that. And I also have a Japanese guy whose grandfather was in the Japanese Imperial Army, who also wants to be on the show. So, show's actually turning out to be more.
He wants to be in the show, or his grandfather?
Yeah, his yeah. That would be really good though. But it would be like, so what was it like during World War II? Oh, it's coming to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
gonna
he
be
sounds like Toshiro Mufasa, or whatever the hell his name is, from fucking like Seven Samurai. He's just all normal and oops. He sounds like the fucking Oriental guy from Conan the Barbarian. And the time came that the ocean and the Atlantis fell into the sea.
Yeah, there's just
that'd be great.
Yeah,
we won't get that.
Well, there's just war drums going off in the background at the same time. Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, I'll be back.
Oh, yeah. No, but it's actually, you know, him, and he knows the stories and everything, and also we just talk a little bit about, you know, Japan, since he lives in Japan. That thing, that's always an interesting
What's
subject.
Japan like? Do you guys eat a lot of rice?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Do you all wear that hat?
That aircraft carrier, and I'm glad I did.
Do you really buy panties out of vending machines there? Do you ever play that bongo game? Where you
Yeah, have you ever played that finger in the ass game in the arcade?
I own my own.
What is your
my own,
fascination
yeah.
with tentacle demons?
Yes. I have it in my huts, my bamboo huts, my coconut radio. Yes.
Isn't Japan just an island, and there's just one arcade, and there's just a generator that powers the city, and everybody lives
Yes,
in
that's called China.
crappy boats? Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, some real inflammatory remarks about China on the show. Oh my God. No, but all right. So,
You know Jackie Chan.
trying to look at some of the oldest stuff. Brian and our father. Brian, our father.
Our father. Oh.
We lived when we lived up in Michigan. My early remembrance probably was when I was in the crib, I think, and I recall the color television or the new TV.
Your face.
The Zenith television coming into the house that was color,
Jesus Christ, yeah.
I think the picture was like 26-inch or something, or 25-inch. It was.
I don't know.
It was.
That thing was godly.
It was like a solid wood set that you basically had to bring in on a dolly or rollers
Weighed
or something.
700 pounds.
Yeah. And it had
You needed a lot of men to move that one. No children, no wives. Just like you call all the men in the neighborhood. Like, I need help with this TV. Okay, we'll be right there.
And it had the two knobs that you turn, and the only reason I remember it in the crib is because it was such a big deal in the house. I remember everyone crowding around it, you know, and remarking about it, and people talking in a good mood. So it was like something that impacted me. But as I got older, this TV became central to my life, and I didn't know at the time when I was in the crib, of course, that television would follow me through about the first 16 years of my life, because it was the only TV that my dad would buy almost his entire life. And back then, you know, you had the one speaker on the TV too. It was just like that little speaker that was underneath the dials, and that was it.
It only gets so loud too.
Yeah, you didn't hook up the stereo to your TV because what the fuck for? There was nothing broadcast in stereo. You just had the picture and the speaker, and the knobs had tuning on them. So if you went to Channel 3, for kids that don't know how this shit worked back then.
Jesus, I forgot about that.
If you went to Channel 3, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see Channel 3. It would just be shit. So you would have to turn the tuning knob on the TV to try and tune it in.
They really should take kids for like a TV show and give them that sort of technology to try to sort out for themselves, because there was no remote control. You know, so like you want to change the channel, like, well, how can I watch channel 55? They wouldn't know.
You got to turn to it.
Right.
But first you need to turn the top dial to the
but who would know that?
Well, yeah, because you got to tune it in, and then what would happen is usually you would get the picture, but it would be like 3 pictures in one. It would be like the guy on the TV, and then there would be a ghost right next to him that looked just like him, standing next to him, and you would be like, that looks like shit. And then there would be like space sparkles going by and stuff. So then you would have to...
You took your hand off the TV, immediately, like whatever you just tuned to, just only going to get a little bit fuzzy again.
Right. So you would go to the rabbit ears, or in our case, we had one of these on the top of the house antenna control things, and you would spin the antenna around to try to get the picture better. And basically what would happen in that case is the picture really wouldn't get better. You would start to get the other channel. Like, you would, instead of watching Channel 3, you would suddenly get Channel 5. Like, Channel 5 would be, no, I don't want it. So, you would turn it the other way to try to get the best picture and stuff. And you'd finally just get it to, like, you'd just give up. You'd be like, all right, this is it. I'm just going to watch this, and it's kind of fuzzy, but I'm just going to sit here and watch it. And then your brother would come in and be like, this looks like shit, I'm going to go and mess with it. You'd be like, no! And he'd be like, you're like, oh, fuck.
You just get up and leave the room.
Right.
Like,
but you would get the one channel that you hated, with the one with the soap operas on it or whatever it was, always came in perfect.
Crystal clear.
Yes.
Every fucking time I remember that. I'm like, I'm going to watch my shows. I'm going to watch Star Trek. Spock.
But back then, it really, like, where you lived, like, geographically, had a lot to do with really what TV you grew up with and watched. Like, because, if you could get in the other channels, then maybe that's what you'd watch. And the other kids would watch whatever their TVs could get in. Because that's just how it works. Now, Larry, do you remember, like, those old TVs? Did your dad have an old TV?
Well, first of all, I don't know. You guys must have really been broke or something, because as far as I can remember, we always had color TV. We had some black and white TVs like in the bedroom or whatever, but the family TV was always color.
Well, hold on. Let me just say that this is like we probably had a color TV, but this was like a new color TV. That's all. I mean, because that's all I remember. I mean, when I was like 2 or whatever I was still in the crib, it wasn't like I was watching the black and white TV or something. I mean, I just don't remember that. But okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Now, yeah, we did have we basically had 2, because we had our finished basement, and then there was the upstairs, like, family room, or the living room, where we had, like, the small little Zenith or whatever. But yeah, in the basement we had the big, gigantic, wooden, friggin' oak, mahogany, lead thing.
Wondered
the other thing I remember, my dad had a friend who actually fixed TVs, and like ours died. He's like, oh, I think I know what it is. Bring it on over. And Lord, no, we're like, okay, sure, no problem. And we grab it to take it, upstairs and throw it in the car. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? But the other thing I remember with TVs is my grandma. Whenever my sister and I would go visit her, she lived out in the middle of BFE, Pennsylvania, and they had the little box on top of the TV that you, like, turned it, and it would click back, and it moved the antenna on the roof.
Right.
Because every so often, you'd have to realign that to get anything. So you'd be like, oh, this isn't working at all, and you'd fill with the dial. And then you'd crank this little thing, and it would just start clicking back. And you'd be like, okay, it's good. Make it stop now. Oh, and it would always pass it up, and you'd have to redo it a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I remember.
Yeah. It would go right by the good one, and then you'd have to turn it around and stuff. And our dad would yell at me, like, don't do that too fast.
I remember the good old days of when, the precursor to cable. We had our channel 61, which was like the porn channel that, like, the neighbor could get kind of, except it was all shitty and ghostly. But you're like, dude, it's like there's a whole nother channel on their TV. That's crazy. you can't have more than 5 channels on your TV. How does that work?
Dude, occasionally we would not, just living in Michigan, we wouldn't just get like American TV. We would also get some Canadian TV, which was like crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
what are they? What is that? The king, queen? What? I have no idea.
Well,
they're not wearing armor.
I remember we had Channel 19 come in to Cleveland, which was always kind of like unusual because new channels was a rare thing to happen. Like on cable, basically there's a new channel every week. Oh, what's this shit? Oh, it's the John Wayne channel. Great, I'm never going to watch this. But back in the day, I mean, obviously you had to own like an entire company, like a giant thing in Cleveland in order to have a new TV channel. And so then like it was really rare. And when 19 came along, they started to play all these movies that people were like, oh, they're much more risky. They let people swear on their movies and stuff. And you're like, really? Something about their FCC license, they could get away with it. And you're like, I don't know if any of that's true.
Yeah, back before the internet, when anytime there was something cool, you could make up a reason for it because nobody could fact check. Yeah, they had to get a different license to do that. It's crazy, and people were like, "Wow, that's really interesting."
Dude, it was like the Dark Ages, man. You might as well have just said they're fucking. You might as well just as well have said, "Yeah, and they're werewolves," because like you can't disprove it. It's like I just go online like no.
Or you just have to call people and ask them and stuff. You just call them up out of nowhere and be like, "Is it true?" No.
You had the one friend that actually knew what the hell he was talking about. Everybody else was just like, a peasant. Like,
And now I remember we all Brian and I lived in this, in Michigan with that one color TV for a long time, and then when we moved in with the step family, we'd go garbage picking, and we got some televisions out of the trash, and I got a pretty decent black and white Motorola TV. It was about a 14-inch little portable thing, and portable. Okay. It does not mean what you think. It wasn't like handheld or anything. Portable basically meant one person could lift it. One person
could kind of get their arms around it, and if they were strong, they could lift it.
Right. That's what they called a portable TV. Seriously. They called it a portable TV because you could carry it. It still took a power, electricity, I mean. It's still plugged in. It had rabbit ears and all this stuff just that you could carry the fucker. And so I had that. Then Brian trash picked a giant wooden TV, unfortunately, that had no picture and it only had sound. But Brian basically kept it because it was such a nightmare to get it into his room that he just couldn't, get the string.
Well, I know it's there to this day. I mean, they probably just didn't figure it. It'd be like either that or we called the fire department, cut a hole in the wall, and get this thing out of here because I don't know,
Yeah, because somebody decided
you didn't dare hit it with a sledgehammer; it might explode and suck you into another universe. I mean, it was just so fucking huge.
Somebody decided back then that it was a good idea to put wood around electronics that could potentially catch on fire and make it out of the heaviest wood possible, which was good because most people back then were like cavemen. When the electronics didn't work, they just punch it, and it sometimes worked. Like their TV would start to go black and stuff, and you'd walk up and you'd be like, and then all of a sudden it would be like the picture would be back, and you'd be like, awesome. And you
and in addition to the flammable wood that they used to encase the electronics, the speakers were always covered with that like felt or whatever that was even more flammable.
Right? Yeah, it was horrible. So, okay, then basically we came along and there was the introduction to cable, and in our Catholic household, cable, we've discussed this before, was the evilest thing you could have because it had swearing and nudity in it, and to us that basically, to my family that just meant
was the devil.
Yeah, it was a non-stop porn channel basically. I mean, it was just forget it
because it was like the internet now, man. There was like no control.
Well, that's what they thought, and but I remember going over friends' houses because we did have cable for like a week or something, but it was way later after our friends had it, and a lot of people like remote, like the wireless remote control was something that was oddly very expensive or something because we had a cable company that provided cable on a wire that you had the control that would sit on your lap, and it had about 30 buttons on it, and then a lever that you would move up and down so you could go between each row of channels. So you get 30 on the one, move it down a row, 30 on the other, move it down a row, 30 more. It was really bizarre, and it made this click noise. So if you were flipping through channels, you would just go click, 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 and then people would be like, "Don't do that so fast." Like you're gonna fuck it up, Like you're like, "I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing." And then there was sometimes like if you went to like one of the paid channels and you didn't get it, you could like put the button halfway down and move the little switch a little bit, and the picture would come in and stuff. There was like all these tricks, so people would like have like little toothpicks and stuff shoved in there. This was the good old days before they came up with digital anything. They were just trying to jam it with some sort of analog or something. And for a long time, though, people had this cable with the stupid wire. And then they eventually, we started to get those cable-ready TVs. Because cable back in the day, your television, the back of your TV didn't have that little coax screw-in thing. It just had 2 screws, basically.
Yeah.
And
that was it, yeah.
You had to unscrew the 2 screws and attach the like a converter box to that, and then screw it back in, and then hopefully your TV picked up the signal pretty good, but not always. Sometimes it just didn't work. So, that was it. Now, Larry, do you remember the first time you got cable, or were you just born with it? Did they say, Larry, we have cable in the house of kings?
No, actually,
or whatever?
I still remember when my uncle moved out to the suburbs, where all the rich people live out in North Ridgeville, and he had cable in his new house. And I was like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing ever. Look, how do you even keep up with all these channels? How do you know what's on? And then, of course, that was right around when ESPN launched. And yes, I was one of the people, I was like, you know what? Sports is great, but unless it's like, baseball or football season, who's going to watch sports all day long? That's a dumb idea. So never take advice from your Uncle Larry when he talks about whether or not your business plan is going to work. But I actually don't remember when we got it. I know we had it when I was like in high school. I don't remember having it much before that, though. Like I said, my uncle had it, and whenever we would go out to his place, for whatever reason, Cinemax or HBO seemed to air Clash of the Titans every month.
Yeah,
that was like the one movie that had passed into friggin', public domain or whatever, and they could air whenever they wanted. So I remember watching that all the time.
It goes on forever, man.
Well, that was the thing.
When you're a little kid, though, you don't care. You're just like, this is awesome. I can watch this all the time. Because you have like that 5-second attention span. It's like, what is this? I don't know if I've ever seen this. Let's see it again. Yay!
Well, that was the thing, because before cable, there was no. I mean, people always talked that like Laserdisc existed since the 70s and stuff like this, but for most people, there was no VCRs and there was no cable. I mean, and so when cable came, it was the only way you would ever get to see a movie again that was unedited. Because if it was, anything, because when we were kids, like The Empire Strikes Back was edited on TV if it was on television, because there were certain parts that were too graphic and didn't fit into the time schedule. So, they changed it around. So, you would hear about people like, I got to watch Star Wars on HBO. You're like, what? Oh my God! Because that would be the big thing. Because otherwise you would never get. I mean, you just you used to sit there and think to yourself, well, I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to rent a projector and rent films.
Oh God, yeah.
Because that was the only way you thought you could.
Star Wars on reel to reel.
Right, because that was the only way you did it. When I went to my my elementary school, it was like kind of like one of those holidays, like you still are in school, but like you don't have to do any work, and we watched The Black Hole on reel-to-reel projector.
Oh my God! How many tins did it come in?
I don't even remember, but
we had those like every month or something at my school. That and Escape to Witch Mountain.
Yeah, right. That's how you would. That's how you would watch movies, and that was the only way. So that was the only way you thought you could ever watch like any of these old movies again. Is that you would have to get yourself a reel-to-reel projector and all this crap, and then along came the VCR. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, do you guys remember like when people first got satellite dish, and it was the giant satellites that would sit in their yard?
It looked like they were contacting another planet. Fuck, I think Billy Lee down the road got it first, dude. And I was like, what the fuck is that thing doing there? I got all excited. Like, can you guys talk to satellites? Like, no. Fucking retarded. The big thing, like, yeah, we know it's huge, but we get satellite now. It's like, well, what's that? They're like, it's dumb.
Yeah, it was like this really.
It didn't even work half the time. They were so pissed.
It was like this real mysterious technology too, because you got like all these channels supposedly for free in the early days
from NASA,
and but it was all like weird stuff all over the world. But you had to have that giant dish, and then they shrank the dish down.
You just wanted to see it move because it could move.
Yeah,
you know,
right. But you know, they
kind of like
that's
cool. As Imperial Walker's coming, we can shoot at him with this thing.
That smaller dish is actually a recent development. You know, that didn't come out until the late '90s, because it was before that you basically either had the big dish or you had cable, and that was it. And I've never actually owned Dish. Have you owned Dish, Larry?
No.
Yeah, I never did either. I mean, I've been...
I grew up in the hood, and then we had cable.
Yeah, I had people that... I've been over people's houses that have had the Dish, and it just seems just like cable, really. But, you know, it's... I never had it. Yeah, there is... Yeah, Brian's right, though. There is people that, you know, say, like, when there's a storm or something, or...
Yeah, I was always convinced that it would then start raining in the middle of Clash of the Titans, and I'd be pissed.
Yeah. Or just, it's Cleveland, so, you know, that little dish, you'd have it in your yard, and then there'd be, like, a giant snowdrift in front of it.
It would get swiped out of your front yard.
Yeah, that too, right.
Yeah. Spray painted. Actually, I don't think you could actually go near it. When the first ones came up, you couldn't touch them because I think you'd get a shock or some shit like that.
Or at least that's what they said.
Yeah, you get microwaved, you're cooked inside.
Could you imagine? You just go over there like, what's this? You're just gone. What the fuck was that? Don't touch it.
They were so ridiculous. Okay, so that takes us to the early days of VCR. And so originally when VCRs first came out, there were two. There was... we're not going to even talk about Laserdisc because nobody had it.
Yeah. It was going to take over. It was the new technology, and soon the VCR would be dead, and like 5 people bought them.
Yeah. Basically, there was Betamax.
But they swear by them.
And there was VHS. And initially, even though today you could not tell, initially Betamax was of better quality than VHS. VHS got to be better when they had VHS HQ. Like, you would buy your VHS player and it would say VHS HQ on it. That was because it was of better quality. But the original VHS, even though VHS is shitty technology, the original one was even worse. And Betamax was a little bit better, but it was one of those Sony products that, you know, was proprietary and Sony wanted to control it and everything, so only Sony made the Betamax, where the VHS was just like an open standard and anybody could make it, or something close to that. And so, gee, who won? You know, you go into the store, there's one Betamax, and then there's like 15 different VHS VCRs, and you're like, gee, I wonder who's going to win this one. We're buying VHS. And, yeah, so... We got a VHS player late. We never had one when we lived with the Step family at all.
No.
And my mom bought one when we would visit her out in California, and that's when Brian would rent porn movies with his Navy buddies and things like that. And,
Oh, yeah. But you had to be 21. I couldn't believe that shit. Like, really? You got to be 21? They're like, yes.
You don't have to be in the movie, but if you want to watch it, you got to be 21 years old.
That's great.
And so we didn't have one, but at the time movies were only $1 to rent. They were only $1. I would go to the rental place and we would rent movies from a place called 99-cent Rentals, and you could go in and you could get your movie, and basically the place had one of each film or something, maybe 2. It wasn't like the big wall racks at Blockbuster where the new release would come out and there would be like 500 of them sitting there. And you would just be like, oh, is this in? No. Oh, all right, well, I'll just rent something else. Because you didn't really care either, because you hadn't already seen 7,000 hours of movies like you have later in life, You could go back and be like, oh, cool, Terminator's out, I'm going to rent this, or whatever. Close Encounters, I never saw this, So in the early days, you didn't care too much, because there was lots of stuff to pick from. But
but you had to be careful, because every so often you'd rent that movie and all of a sudden you'd be watching, all of a sudden you hear inside the VCR here, and he's like, oh, no, don't eat the tape, oh, fuck.
Yeah, or it just came that way. You'd put it in, like, you used to have a good picture on your VCR, and you'd play a tape, and it'd be like, and you'd be like, ah, fuck, and you take the tape out, and then you put in, like, another videotape, and it's fucked up, and you're like, God damn it, because there's probably peanut butter on it or something, and it fucked your head up. Then you have to get those fucking head-cleaning tapes that never really did anything. They're like, put 2 drops of alcohol on this fucking thing, and then shove it in your player and see what it does. And it'd come out and shit, and it'd be all fucked. It still wouldn't work.
You had to get the VCR tape rewinder.
Yeah, because you always had to take them in. Yeah.
They said it fucked you. They said using the rewind on your VCR fucked it up, so you get the rewinder. You know, it's like you would take this fucking thing. It was like popping it into a toaster, man. I swear to God, you put it in, all yours, you know, it like super fast fucking. You wouldn't do that to like rewind to a scene because as soon as you put it in there, you had like maybe a second, and then it was back at the beginning again. You're like, fuck. You know,
right.
Turn it off.
Right. Well, that was the other thing too. It's like with your VCR, with a lot of those VCRs, the motors were kind of weak. So you would put the tape in, then you would hit rewind, and it'd be like,
like bogged down.
It's like just waiting for
like a spring to shoot out and take you in the eye.
Yeah, you'd be like, all right, and then you'd stop and you press play again, and it was like, yeah, like Brian was saying, like 5 seconds have only been gone by backwards. You're like, fuck, this is gonna take forever.
Yeah. Go take a shit, do your laundry, come back. It's only half done. Like,
and then there was the whole weirdness.
Some asshole always puts the fucking tape back without rewinding it. You know, so you put it out, it's all credits. You're like, son of a bitch. You know?
And there was this weird, and then you had like the tracking control where like, you know, you would start watching and then it'd be all like, and the sound would be like, yeah, instead of people like fix the tracking. You know, and you'd be like, God damn it. And you'd go like, there's like a little wheel.
Control, you're trying doing tracking, man. It was like, for some reason, the tracking on the VCR works better than the remote control one. The remote control ones, for me, have always been like they just don't fucking work. I'm like, is this thing sending a signal? What the fuck? Because you don't have to get up the couch.
Oh, you have all those, like, you have all those fuzzy...
Couch, like,
you have all those fuzzy lines at the top, and they're all going by, and you're like, okay, so you move those up, and then they start coming up from the bottom.
From the bottom, yeah.
And you're like, oh, this fucking
like,
blows.
This is dumb. What the fuck, man? But then you're just like, okay, which one makes it clearer? You know, and then if you wear a baseball hat, you can just like lower it down, and it's like, okay.
And then and with the VCR, you could record, and the weird thing about the recording was like they said like, well, the 2-hour recording is better than the 6-hour recording. Yeah. And so you would tape stuff in the 2-hour, and you would watch it, and you'd be like, this isn't any fucking better. because if I
the third time you record anything, it's just ass.
But if I pause it, it looks like shit when you tape it in the fast speed. But if you tape it on the long play and you pause it, it's like a still picture. So then you're just like, I'm just going to tape everything on the long play. I'm not going to, you know, and VHS tapes are all expensive and shit, you know, the blank ones. So it wasn't like anybody was you know, I'm going to just buy VHS tapes like crazy and record everything.
Now they're like giving them away. Like, here, take this with your groceries.
People have these huge collections of like taped fucking shows and shit. You're like, I have this thing and I'm going to take this with me for the rest of my life and stuff. And you're like, yeah, it's going to happen. You know, because you know all those videotapes are just basically. I mean, Larry still has some videotapes. We move them, but
I have tons of movies on videotape.
Right,
in boxes in your basement,
sitting next to my TV, and I watch them pretty regularly.
Yeah. Right, Larry's an anomaly, but most people, if they still have their collections, they don't put them on. This is just a pain in the ass.
I watch them all the time, and I listen to my cassette tapes.
VHS lasted a long time before DVD came out. DVD came out in, like, what, 2000, 2001, something like that? It was late, man. I mean,
it really was the dark ages, and then all of a sudden the Renaissance period of fucking DVD came out. But, man, because, I mean, people kept, like you said, they kept trying to come out with shit like the Laserdisc. Yeah. You know,
well, that actually
one guy in our street had it down the road, and like I said before, they swore that they were like the best things in sliced fucking bread. You know, and we're just like, okay, man, you know, they got these little small things I heard coming out of Japan. You know, that you'd see like people on TV put that little disc inside their car driving around in movies. You're like, what's that? Oh my God, that's so space tech. You know, and now you're like, what is that now, man? You know,
like VCDs or whatever. Yeah, Laserdisc was, I think, predated VHS, but you know, and then they had like technologies that weren't really going to float, but you'd hear about them, like Super VHS, and people would be like, "Oh, well, Super VHS is the future." You know, you need to get a VHS player that was Super VHS. And I remember looking at Super VHS players and stuff, and I'm like, it was $500 and some, you know, where a regular VCR was like $100 at the time. You're like, I'm not buying that, you know. It's fucking ridiculous. For what? There's no movies in Super VHS. Like if I go to the rental place, well, they're coming. Yeah, okay. Did they come? Mm-hmm. No. You know, there was like stereo that came out eventually on VHS, like for stereo soundtracks. But that was actually a rare item. Like if you had a VHS or a VCR that played in stereo, like later on, like in the late 90s, if you bought one, it came stereo. But most people didn't have one because they were expensive. And because the tracking and the sound quality was so bad, it was like, if you ever did have it in stereo, it would just make it worse. Because like all the bad sound wasn't lining up with the tracks, and you had the sound coming out of one side and everything. It was horrible. So, yeah, that's basically it for that. We're not going to talk about DVDs, really. Okay, so Brian, do you remember rotary dial telephone?
Yes. I remember the first time my dad was trying to teach me how to use the telephone, and I was like, little kid, and I was pretty introverted I don't know, nobody remembers it, never mind. And I tried calling Mom at work, and I froze. And the guy's like, hello? Hello? And then he hears this little kid voice go, and then my dad completely in, God damn it, Brian. Hang up the phone. That was my first adventure with the rotary dial. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. If you're a kid...
The rotary dial was like one of those phones that if the person you knew had a lot of nines or a couple zeros in their phone, you just never called them. Because for some reason, it just took too goddamn long, man. It just took too goddamn long to fucking rewind that shit.
You certainly had a disadvantage when radio stations would be like, if you're the 19th caller to call this number. It actually took a lot of labor. I mean, you would have to sit there and go
1-800 fuck it click
zip
dial all that shit.
Zip.
Yeah, if you dial the wrong number by mistake, you just like son of a bitch.
And
you start talking anyway.
Eventually, 8-track came out. Or 8-track, Touchtone came out, and Touchtone was an option, and it cost about $5 more a month on your phone bill, which in our house was no. You're not allowed to have that. And so the phone company would sell phones that looked like Touchtone telephones, but if you press the button, it would just make the noise. And stuff like that. And I don't know if everybody remembers Wayne's World, where Garth wants his Sports Illustrated football phone. The football phone was not a touch-tone phone because the technology to make the touch-tone phone was actually kind of expensive, even to put into a regular telephone. So phones like that used to just make the pulses that sounded just like it did with the dialing. So it was pretty crazy. Larry, did you guys have rotary dial?
Oh yeah, we had rotary growing up. We had the phone hanging on the wall. Nasty green colored phone. And the other thing I remember to show you just how long that technology held on. In high school, I had actually, it might have been after high school. It was after high school. I had a pager because, of course, who needs a cell phone? I have a pager.
We're going to talk about that.
I can just get to a phone.
Right.
And I remember I got a phone call. I got a voicemail. So I went to the phone, and I dialed my voicemail, and I play it back, and my voicemail was. And I'm listening. I'm like, what in the fuck is this? So I play it back again. I play it back again, and then it hit me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should count those clicks. And yeah, I called my girlfriend who was in college and was home at her parents that weekend. I was like, did you just call my pager? She's like, yeah, I left you my number. Didn't you get it? And then she asked, and her parents still had the pulse dialing instead of touch tone. So when she tried punching in her number, it just registered the clicks and sent it to voicemail.
Nice. That's funny. Yeah. And then we you were mentioning voicemail, and our mother had one of the first answering machines, which was this big console unit that looked like a typewriter. Mm-hmm. And it had two regular sized cassette tapes that were inside of it, and it made all this racket. Like if somebody called and it was it was just totally crack, and started recording and stuff. And
especially she had the volume turned down, so you couldn't hear who was talking. So you try to sleep, and sometimes you get calls late at night, and you'd be trying, you little kid, you sleep all day, you're crack, and you're like, what?
And it would do that fast forward, and rewind and stuff, and you'd just be like, that thing's noisy. I remember later on, I had one in the in the bedroom when we were living with my dad, where there was only one bedroom, and he was sleeping in it the one time, and the thing was making all this racket, like crack, crack, and stuff. And he comes out, and he's like, God, this thing can't be beyond all night, all right? I'm like, all right, sorry, I'll take it out of there. It was just making a fucking shitload of noise. And then you guys, you remember the phones we used to have were connected to a cord. And so basically you were isolated
long curly cord.
You were leashed to the wall.
Yeah.
It really depended on how far you could take that phone, and people had these ridiculously long, like curly Q like cords that they could stretch and everything, and they would turn into big knots and stuff after a while because you would be
and for whatever reason, whenever you got a phone, everyone put it like in the kitchen or something, never near like a place you could sit. So you could never sit on the phone because there was never a chair anywhere near it. So you had to just sort of like stand there in the kitchen, like, hanging out while everyone goes to the fridge to get a snack, and you're talking on the phone.
Some people didn't have those curly Qs. They had like that. It was like a phone line, but it had like a thing inside that would like tether out more fucking phone line. Right. And it would just always get jammed up. So really, like, you'd have this long, dumb-looking cord with a knot in it. You're just fucking like, this is retarded. Or it would suddenly come unstuck. I don't know. This happened to me one time, man. And this thing must have been like made out of like a Black & Decker fucking Ford, like a cord recoiler. And I must have had like loose in my hand. I don't remember who I was talking to. And all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe the dried peanut butter on the line fucking finally broke away. And the thing just went crack and ripped the fucking phone right out of my hand. And it like smacked into the fucking wall. Crash! I'm like, oh.
And inevitably, like
what the fuck happened? I'm just like,
somebody would eventually break the wire, so the little tab on the phone thing would no longer be there, and so you'd be talking on the phone to somebody, and you'd be like, yeah, and stuff, and then the wire would just go off the phone, and it'd be like, you'd be talking to nothing, and you'd be like, God damn it, because the phone would be hung up at that point, and you'd have to get the fucking wire, put it back in, and be like,
Yeah, because sometimes it would just be like for some reason, it was like the wrong size or something, man. You just put them in there, just for some reason, they just didn't fit correctly.
It would just come out, or somebody would walk by and trip on it, and it would go,
They'd kick it, and the receiver it would come flying out of your hand, and the phone would either fly off the top of. For some reason, people took those phones and they put them right next to like a bunch of like fragile shit. You ever notice that, man? It was like never next to like books. It was always next to like, I'll put Dad's ashes here next to the phone, so if somebody trips over the cord, Dad will be all over the fucking house, So you just like walk the house, it's like crash.
Right, and it was. But the one thing is that the phones would be built out of like, they don't make anything that hardy today. Like your telephone was.
Oh yeah, you could go ahead and smash that thing against the wall.
You're safe.
Yeah, the phone was something that would just be like completely, unbelievably solid
plastic.
You could drop it on cement and stuff, and it'd just be like bang and stuff. It would still hold together. I don't know. It was weird. So we got Anderson joining us now. Hello, Don.
Yes. Hello.
Greetings.
We're talking about technology. I'm sure you've been listening.
I've been listening.
We were talking about corded phones, and
yes.
And then we got to the point where the first cordless phones, now not cellular phones, but your cordless phones came out, and they had the big long aluminum antenna that you would pull.
Right, unless you watch in the other room.
Yeah.
If I may, just real quick, just since I just got on.
What is it?
Oh, okay. I was waiting for somebody to say yes. Go right ahead. We would love to hear from you.
Are you retarded? Come on.
About the cords on the phones. Sometimes it depends on like whose house you go to, because like sometimes you get like the phone and it would have the short cord, and then you go over like your buddy's house and they got like the cord like Napoleon Dynamite that like goes like through like 3 different rooms.
Yeah.
And my parents came home one night and the cord was stretching from the kitchen through the hallway into the bathroom. They're like, "What is going on?" And I was sitting on the toilet pooping because I was talking to this chick for so long. And I was like, "Shh, don't tell her I'm pooping. I don't want her to know." I'm sitting there with the cord, like, just like stretching it as far as it'll go. I'm just like holding on to the cord inside the thing. I'm like, "Please don't fall out." So I threw that in there. I thought it was funny. Okay.
It's so when you went too far too, because all of a sudden you'd hear like this crashing noise, you'd be disconnected. You hear, God damn it!
And
You get poked in the eye because the cord comes flying at you.
And the wired phone always had the interesting thing where like other people could pick up the phone, and sometimes you wouldn't know, but most of the time you did, because you could be having like the craziest conversation. Like you'd be like, yeah, then I went over there and I smacked that dude in the face and stuff, and then you would just hear this really lightly in the background and stuff. You'd be like, shh. Hang up the phone, that's what everybody would say, because you would hear the person pick up the phone, and you would be like mad. You'd be like, who's on the phone, looking around the house and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were on. Yeah, you didn't know I was on. Fuck you, but anyway, maybe that's just
listening
me.
in on your conversation.
Right, exactly. My friends and I would mess with my mother that way. We would know, like, when she picked up the phone and stuff, and then we'd like switch the conversation around. We'd be like, well, tomorrow's the day I'm going to kill myself. Oh. I didn't know, really? Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I'm going to do it outside by the train. And my mom would be like, Kevin, hang up the phone. Oh, all right, shit, all kinds of stupid shit. All right. So cordless phones, basically the original ones, the battery lasted for about 20 minutes. And the antenna would poke somebody's eye out, and they were pretty bulky, and they picked up all kinds. It was interference, but the interference was all like CB radio chatter and shit like that.
Planes flying overhead,
or the family 2 doors down. They got the same phone.
Listening to the neighbor.
Yeah, fucking.
But you can only hear one side of it.
If your phone lost line of sight with the receiver, you would be disconnected. But all of a sudden, fucking. Airline 24 going from here to Ireland. Oh, you heard the conversation beautifully. Like, the wheels are up now and we'll be taking off. What the fuck? Like, shh, listen, it might crash.
Yeah, or you'd hear Uncle Vic on from WGCL, or something. You'd be like, what is this? I don't fucking listen to this crap. And, they were pretty terrible, but most people only had one in the house. And, it was like the main phone. Other times you just have to get corded. And I don't know, but they were always the phone that was lost and dirty. I'm sure it's still like that today because people probably have them, but they're probably all, tiny and I don't know. Brian's gone through like about, 10 different phones. Do you still have a regular phone, home phone, Brian?
I've got the one that's portable. We had 3 of them, because one is certainly not enough, because the first goddamn thing that happens is the phone rings and you're like, where's the phone? That's the downfall of a portable phone is there's always some fucker that's going to take it and stuff it between couch cushions.
Or the battery's dead. Yeah.
What always blew my mind? What always blew my mind is that why did they have cell phones? They're not cell phones. They would make cordless phone, and then they'd have a switch on there. You could just do where you hit the button and it goes doot doot doot, or they have it where you could do rotary. Where you would like push the button because Clay Mueller had a phone, he had a cordless phone, and every time you went to use it, you dial the number, and then when you put the phone up to your ear, you're sitting there listening to.
Right, we were talking about that. Right, yeah, because it was an option. So because Touchtone was an option,
you had to pay extra.
You had to pay $5 extra a month in order to have Touchtone. In fact, George Dalton didn't have Touchtone for years because his family didn't want to pay for it.
I know.
They may not have Touchtone today, for all I know.
No, I think they finally got it. They had to get an internet, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, modems even back in the day, that was actually an option on a modem. The older ones, they would dial rotary or Touchtone. And it's just bizarre. A little mechanical arm would come out and spin the dial on the phone. No, it didn't happen like that. So then before there was...
And what are you talking about, Kevin? You have a home phone.
Well, mine's an internet phone, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not hooked up to the regular POTS lines. Phone. Most people, and plus I don't pay a bill on it or anything, most people, I don't know, do you find that, Brian, that you have a need to have a home phone? I mean, don't you guys both have cell phones?
No. I mean, we do have cell phones, too, but I don't want to keep the damn thing on all the time because... the one I don't want to hear, I mean, I hear this all the time, too, when I'm on the road, especially as people are like, I tried calling your cell phone, but you don't pick it up, like, because it's off. Like, well, why is it off? Like, because I'm fucking driving. Okay, I could get hands-free, but it just, you know what I mean? So when I'm driving, I don't want to talk to you on the fucking phone.
Brian,
my cell phone is for me to call you. It's not for you to call me. Call me at home or from my computer, send me a message.
If Brian's driving, you don't interrupt singing time. You know, it's like wheels of fire burning through the.
Yeah, got my lighter. No, it's just it's just I prefer having my home phone because especially my cell phone I can see who's calling. And I can just ignore it, but they leave a voicemail message on my cell phone. I got to go through the whole fucking trouble of like answering it, hearing what the fuck they had to say, and then deciding whether I want to delete it or not. Whereas at home, I can just hit delete on my answering machine and not ever hear what the fuck they had to say, which I think is better.
So before there was cell phones, there was always like cellular technology before. It came out mainstream. There was like if you watch old TV shows,
cell phones.
Yeah, if you watched old TV shows, right, there would be the suitcase phones or the phones in the car. Those were actually shipped to shore phones, from what I understand, which they would use on boats and things like that for making calls. And so rich people basically could have them because it was some insane price to make a call with one of those. But before cell phones came out, the technology was still very expensive. So people had pagers. There was like this time when people would pay a monthly fee to basically have a pager, which it depended.
Are you a drug dealer?
Yeah, I mean, basically, right. There was it wasn't as crazy as cell phones because not everybody had a pager. It was like maybe 1 in 10 people would be a person with a pager because most people just thought it was stupid or, like Donnie just said, it was a drug dealer.
They're very handy.
Right, well, we had them, but Brian never had a pager, right, Brian? You never had a pager.
No, never wanted one.
Right, exactly. And Cease, I believe, never had a pager.
Beep, 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 shut up.
So there was...
Battery is dying.
Most people had the cheapo Bravo pager, which was just like your square pager that showed you just like a phone number on it. Like, I think it held like 9 digits or something, or whatever is 10, or how many freaking it is for a phone number. And basically that was it. And we would send messages to each other by using the letters on the phone, and we would turn them into number combinations.
Leet speak.
And that's how you would try to... But it would take you like 15 minutes to figure out what somebody was saying. You'd be like, I am... Goose?
This could be... You're like 3 letters per number. So if you didn't get like any of the first, the word or whatever, there's like a 10-letter word. You're like, shit, here we go. Could be S, could be T.
To miss you with your girlfriend.
Right, and people would be like, well, why didn't you just call him? Because it wasn't always actually a situation where you could, because you might be at a bonfire, or you might be driving around or something, and there was no cell phone. So you would have to pull over to a pay phone. And you would pick up the payphone and call somebody, and that wasn't even always the most easiest thing, because maybe Anderson was at work, and I would send him a text, and, I might not hear from the guy from 3 hours or something. So that's, you would just send messages with those things. And then there were these more advanced ones that looked like you could ward off a vampire with them or something, because they would glow and shit, like an amulet. And you could call like a messaging service or something, and you could tell them to send a message to that person. And I didn't really know anybody that had those, but I mean I've seen them. I don't know, Larry. You sound like a guy that had one of them big ass pagers though. That probably you got TV on it.
I had the cheap little pager.
Yeah, all right. Because you probably got it through a job or something. You're like, here, Larry, you can have this advanced pager as part of our new.
It looks like it's gonna fucking give you radiation poisoning.
Yeah,
but it was to a job.
Don't open up the back. It's got a nickel battery, but I mean, it makes it sound like there's like a fucking small radioactive generator in there. You open it up, and all of a sudden you can turn to the Hulk.
Yeah, and do you guys remember when you first put your pager or cell phone on quiet vibrate and stuff, and you had it in your pocket and you weren't used to it?
I was a rat.
And all of a sudden you felt like there was like a bee's nest or something. You're like, oh, all right.
But then you'd have it down there for so long. You'd have it in your pocket, like in that one spot in your pocket for so long that, like, even when you had it out, you'd be sitting there, you'd be like, oh, pager's going off. Then you go reach in and there's nothing.
Yeah, you develop that phantom tingle on the side of your thigh.
Yeah. That's a good cell phone.
My first cell phone had vibrate, man. And it, remember those old, toy plastic machine guns that had that fishing weight that would clack against something inside, so you pull the trigger in there? That's what it felt like, man. I was like, what the fuck is that? Oh, it's
He's got a mouse running around on a wheel.
Yeah,
so let him know he's got a call.
And if you had one that had like a really good, like I think they took like one AA battery and stuff, and if you had one like a really good battery and it was on vibrate sitting on the table, it'd be like, it'd be like vibrating and shit, and people would be like, "What's the matter with that thing?" You know, it'd be like, I don't know, but I got to look at this. It was,
You're like, I don't know, but you got a phone?
Taco Exile. No, that's not right. You know? And people be like, "What are you doing?" I'm trying to figure out what this dude's saying to me. It says, there's like, see this number, and then it says 78, so I know that's Anderson because there's 78 at the end. But I don't know this other part. That guy.
And everybody would have code numbers that you'd put at the end, and then they'd have,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you would figure out who you were actually calling, because some mystery number from a payphone would show up, and you wouldn't know who the fuck that is. So everybody had a code number at the end. And then if they really wanted to talk to you, they put 911 at the end because it was an emergency.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have like your own codes, though? Like even for, not just for pager, but for cells, so you text somebody, it's like it's really important. Like before texting came in, you would just punch in that number and you'd add like, XX or some shit like that. It means, oh my God, it's super important. That's
right.
what we do.
Okay. I use and back in the day when I had my pager, and of course I was accused of dealing drugs or selling dope or whatever, and whatever I did was whatever I did. The payphone outside of where the milk pail used to be there on Lorraine Road. Everybody remembers the milk pail, right?
Sure, I do. But barely.
Maybe not all the listeners.
Okay. Well, no, not the. I'm talking about you guys. I'm talking to you guys.
Oh,
you guys know the milk pail,
right?
By Stearns and Lorraine.
Right. I would try getting a job there, fucking like washing dishes, and some greasy fucking kid came out there and was just like, "What do you want?"
There used to be a payphone there. There used to be a payphone there, right up by Lorraine Road, and that used to be my base of operations. That one and the payphone by where Guitar Center is now in North Olmsted, when it used to be like Fredder, across from where Hills is, where it was. There used to be a payphone. Right? That would be like whenever I got a page, whoop, I got to get to the phone, and those would be my phones, because you never know, because you get to payphones back in the day, they wouldn't work. They'd be broken.
Yeah,
you'd be screwed. You'd be scrambling around trying to find a payphone.
Right, broken payphones or payphone. Like you'd pick up the payphone and like be a big wad of gum on it and shit or something, or somebody peed all over the front of it and stuff. And
or the wires would come out of it.
Like, I'm not using this. Yeah, nasty.
Somebody unscrewed the mouthpiece.
Just be like a half-eaten hamburger smashed into it, with a drink poured on top.
Gum is always stuck on the fucking the corners. You go to dial the fucking thing, and the thing would turn, but then it wouldn't turn back. You're like, God damn, I don't want to touch this thing more than I have to.
Horrible bee's nest next to it, and shit. It's just be like, I'm not using
some payphones would have their number on them, so you could page people with that payphone number, and then you always usually get that where like people will be standing around payphones, and you're just like, hey, can I use this phone? They're like, hurry up, I'm waiting on a call. You're like, wait a minute, dude, it's a payphone. What do you mean you're waiting on a call?
There was a payphone that was sitting out front of the Great Northern Movie Theater, and I remember it used to ring, and I knew that Kevin Vinoy would always call that phone up just to talk to girls that would happen to pick up the phone. And I remember just one time coming out of a movie and it was ringing, and I picked it up and I was like, Vinoy, and he's like, how the fuck did you know it was me? And I just guessed, I mean, it was like something that people did, but like Donnie was saying, everybody used to just call freaking these numbers, it was goofy.
Yeah.
You guys had the CB craze out there for a while too.
Yeah, that was more or less me and Vinoy and
shits and giggles. But there were some couple dudes that they were talking about, like, run a CB, man. We're fucking with the truck drivers. I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, that wasn't really. It wasn't really. There was a group of people in the same location that used the CB, and it was kind of useful when you were looking for people, and in the winter time when your car was stuck, you'd be like, "When are you guys come and like help me get out of this?" But I wasn't really much into, like, it was funny watching Kevin Vinoy like sit there and fuck with people on it, because he would just be like, I'm going to kill you and stuff. And people would get all mad at him and everything, and he'd just laugh, because you know how that guy is. And
right. Yeah,
I just sit there and listen to this shit and be like, oh my God, dude, that guy's going to kill you. But Vinoy was just, he was smarter than I was in that sense, because he's like, how's that guy going to find me? And my brain's thinking, well, they could triangulate your position or something, And you're like,
truckers out there like, hold on a second there, boy, let me get my triangulation device out.
Yeah,
my triandicular.
That shit ain't ever going to fucking happen, So you just sit there. That dude just be fucking with people all the time. It was pretty funny. So let's move on to let's talk a little bit about the music. Our dad had a reel-to-reel cassette recorder. I don't know if anybody ever had something like this. I'm not sure if it was my mom's or my dad's or whose it was. Brian, did you actually ever use that thing?
What, mom's giant fucking wooden block? Like they had the goddamn. You'd have to
Two big stickers on it for tape.
No, God, dude. My mom had two things to listen with music. Okay, one was the reel-to-reel tape player. Okay, but Christ help you if you ever turn that shit on. Because either our German relatives talking into some microphone, and it sounded like they were in the other room when they were recording it. So it was all like, you know, and then, or you had German music from the 60s. Okay, so you're just like, oh, God, I can't imagine a worse fucking death than listening to that for an hour. My mom would be crooning away to that shit. So she had that, and then she had like this German fucking wooden stereo console that, I mean, honest to God, first off, you had like the front of the fucking stereo, and it had like the big white buttons, okay, to press to get the fucking show, like clunk, clunk, clunk. And then instead of turning a knob, which would go between the channels, I don't know how to explain this, so bear with me, okay? But it seemed like going through the middle of like the screen you're looking at, where all the like the numbers are, there was like string. And, like, the string would go up or down depending on where the fuck you had this.
Oh, I kind of remember that, yeah.
Like, if you're getting close to the channel. We never, obviously, listened to the radio on that thing because there's no way it could have got anything in. I mean, I don't know if it was, like, American, like, what the hell is that, Voice of America? Must have got pumped over that when she lived over there? I don't know. And then, like, she had a giant, like, you had to lift up the top of the fucking console, and inside there was the record player. And all the fucking fingers were covered in like felt, you know? Yeah. And then it's like, but the thing of it was, that thing was louder than shit, man. I'll say one thing about the Krauts, they knew how to make fucking speakers, you know? It just, of course, it was, again, it took up the whole side of the wall, you know? Like, I think we had a fish tank on it at one time.
Yeah.
Fucking a lamp, a couple of ashtrays. I mean, it just, man, you could put tons of shit on there, and it was just like, well, that's really nice. What is that? That's our stereo. No, get out of here. Really? You know? All the albums my parents had, all of them, they all fit underneath that thing. It was nuts.
Yeah, it
was. I had one of those. I think it was like it's like short and it's long,
right?
And it's like got a record player in the middle. You got to like push down on the lid, and then like it pops up.
Right?
And
yeah.
We had one of those, but the pop up thing was broken, so you had to stick a key in there and then pop the lid off like that. And then the radio busted. And my brother tore it apart. It was really sick.
Yeah, and it was one of those. It was one of those things too, where it was like it would dim the lights if you turn it on and stuff. Because it you know, today's stereo, it's all digital and stuff, so you turn it on and it's kind of normal. But those old stereos, like, you knew that it was on because it would be like thump and stuff, and you'd be like, you know, I hope I don't get electrocuted to death like pressing one of these buttons, you know, because it was just like all those tubes and everything, and they were just humming away.
It was weird, man, because you would like try to change channels to catch a radio station, and if you know, maybe just fortunately you just got one, it's like you either come in like really quiet, or then it was just like the fucking band is like exploded out of your wall. They're like, you know, my parents didn't really listen to rock and roll, man. So like if rock and roll came on, they're like, hey, Christ Almighty.
I went over to this dude's house the other day. We were standing in his garage looking at his car, and I was like, "Oh, look at that! It's a little mini black and white television." He goes, "Yeah, man, it still works." And he turns it. He goes and clicks it. You know, you click. He goes, "Yeah, dude, just give it a second. It'll warm up." I'm like, "Nah, it's not even on." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I would have been able to hear it because you know when you used to turn the TVs on, you hear that the background. It was always like ear piercing. You had to like, you know." I was like, "Yeah, dude, your TV's not on." Dude, it's coming on. I'm like, "No, it's not coming on."
Yeah, you're right. There'd be that like weird like cat noise thing, like there's like no real sound, but there's like that weird like high pitch something where you would know that it was on or not. Yeah.
It's like Ghostbusters. It's like, you know, when they turn the backpacks on, it's almost like that because it's just like you're just like, what the hell was that?
All right,
it's good stuff.
So So Brian doesn't really remember the reel-to-reel player too much, but I never really got to use the dumb thing.
No, dude, I remembered enough about it that I blocked the rest out.
Now our mother had an 8-track.
It was just horrible fucking, German singing and mumbling on that thing. And it was like it had a giant microphone, that had its own stand. Of course, we made it into a tank or something ridiculous because we're dumb retard kids. But I mean,
a lot of tuba.
It was just like, it was like right out of a movie, man.
Now, if you had a car back in those days, you basically only got the radio, and most of the time you only got AM radio. FM didn't come out until later, and it was an expensive option on a car. But a lot of people opted to get 8-track players in their car, and 8-track was not a better sound quality than a record. But it was portable. You could take it in the car, and records were made out of like material.
Vinyl.
Some of them seemed like they were just made out of like plastic. Because
the flimsy plastic ones.
You would just drop them and they'd smash into a million
when you would
pieces.
get the little singles in like comic books and shit or Happy Meals.
yeah, the floppy ones, right? Yeah, the ones you could roll up.
Mad Magazine had one too. I remember that one. That was great. We played it constantly because the Mad Magazine one, every time you played it, a different song, like it had a different ending.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was weird. I don't know. I'm not sure how they did that.
It was Satan. That's why.
it had some weird technology in the in the little plastic record that would cause it to skip to a different ending.
Okay, check this. Remember back in the day where you'd get the 45 and it would come with your fucking comic book? Like Planet of the Apes and shit, and you'd like read along with it.
I had the
like
Death Tongue
one. Go ahead.
I had the Death Tongue single, and that was like plastic, and that came in the Bloom County book. Wow, you guys remember Death Tongue? Nobody read Bloom County, did you?
I had to blow the dust off my brain for a second there. Jesus Christ, you really had that? That's nuts.
Clay Mueller had it. We recorded it. We only played that little record thing once, and we recorded it the whole time. And yeah.
So it says here that that FM radio didn't actually gain listenership over AM until 1978. So it existed, but it was something that people just, I don't know, people liked AM better because really stereo was something that most people hadn't adopted. It was expensive. And,
plus AM went farther, so you could just get it on the sticks. So FM was like that scratchy shit they couldn't hear. Plus, AM radio had all the cool fucking shows, whereas
well. AM was the way to go, but
not anymore. That's all garbage.
Not in the country. I mean, you want to listen to AM radio out in the country where there's nothing obstructing any of your. Whereas FM flies through.
It's all like zealots on fucking crack, dude. It's like is there like or fucking?
They don't rock out.
Crackers.
I'll tell you what, once in a while I'll be driving and I'll put the AM stations on because it's either religious stations or it's talk radio, and I'll listen to some talk radio, I'll listen to some sports talk, whatever, blah blah blah. But you never hear any like authentic just rock stations on AM anymore because they just don't care. There's like AM, man, nobody even gives a shit
because it's
AM
not
radio.
But it's not in stereo. AM isn't in stereo. That's why music's not played on AM. It's because it's a mono format,
right? Monochromatic.
Nowadays, with the high definition radio, though, all of them can actually carry stereo soundtracks. But anyway, with 8-track, though, 8-track had this weakness where you basically had 4. I don't know. They call it 8-track, but you basically had 4 tracks on the tape, and you would. If you had, for instance, the song list, it would tell you which of the 4 tracks that song was on the tape. And so, like, for instance, if you wanted to hear Castle Walls by Styx, you would say pick the second track on the tape. But then, 8-track just played in sort of like an infinite loop. And so you would start listening, and you might be in the middle of Rockin' the Paradise or something by Styx, and you'd be like, this sucks. So you would try to use the fast forward, but the fast forward was dangerous on an 8-track.
Anus.
If it worked, it was maybe.
If it worked, it was slow and really noisy and annoying.
And it may eat your 8-track. It just might eat it. And so
if that happened, your 8-track player was busted forever.
And the other thing was
nobody can how to fix that shit.
The window of space that each one of those 4 tracks held wasn't huge. It was like maybe 15 minutes or something. So if you had a song like Castle Walls on the Styx album that went a little bit long because they decided that they were going to have like a 10-minute freaking keyboard solo in the middle of it, it would just kind of fade out at the end. It would just be like, and then you'd hear the 8-track player go, and then it would pick up on the next track and stuff, and you'd just be like, wow, that's
you feel like
fucking weak.
You're missing out. That's what it is. You feel like you're missing out.
Yeah, sometimes those 8 tracks weren't cued properly either, man. It would come in like, oh, look, I was in the song. You turn it on.
The song starts fading out. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
It gets all airy and stuff, and it's like, so then you gotta like
officially rock.
You take some paper and you shove it in on the side, and that fixes the sound for a while, but it just gets progressively worse. And and so then eventually you just got to change it. It was a bad technology. It just all around it was. I mean, people love 8-track and everything. Yeah, because
I had an 8-track in my car. I had some of the great albums of all time that I could listen to. Now, granted, the actual 8 tracks weren't necessarily convenient to store because they were all huge and clumsy, and you'd put like 2 in your glove box of the car, and that was about it.
But the problem but see, somebody like Larry or even Anderson here or whoever was getting 8-tracks, by the time these guys got into 8-tracks, they were all like $1 for a box of 10 at whatever store they happened to be at. So yeah, then it becomes awesome. You're like, look at this! Yeah, I got all these fucking awesome albums. It's only $1. You're like, it rocks. Right. But no, it's. If you had to pay full price for that shit, you'd be like, this is fucking horrible. I should have got the record, And that's where cassette tape became the thing. Because not only, did cassette tape, was smaller, like Larry was saying, you could store it and you could still play it in your car and everything, but you could record your record onto your cassette. Which is like all of a sudden everybody wanted to do that. So the first stereos, the first stereos that they sold basically were a record player with a cassette player on it, and you could record the record onto the cassette, and everybody did that, and the sound quality was shit.
It was. It absolutely was. Dude, I used to make money doing that. I used to record all my Kiss records for the kids in school. I got them all hooked on Kiss, and then I charged them all $1, and they had to supply the tapes. $1 for every album,
and you would get you would get those cassette tapes that were like real cheap, like those Sertrons. They'd come
the orange Sertrons, or green, or blue, or red.
They'd come 3 to a pack or whatever, and they'd be real bad and everything.
50 cents, 50 cents for 3, and a bonus one for 4. You know what I mean? We'll give you the bonus 4th one free because we know before you even walk out the door that one of them's going to fall apart.
Yeah, they had no case. They just came like just plain tape and everything, and you put those in and tape on. And then if you were like a kid, you'd be like making your own like monster stories and stuff on the tape recorder and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd tape over it like 5 times. So you'd be hearing like ZZ Top playing something, and then in the background you'd be hearing, today we're out looking at the news, or something.
In between, you record a record on something in between songs. You hear you going, hey, we're playing Chutes and Ladders, and we're going to record it. It's the World Championship. You're
right.
Like, oh, shit.
You're like, this. People are like, what are you listening to?
Just pray to God nobody ever found that, It's at least worse than having recordings of you before your voice cracked that your friends fucking bungle across, and you're like, oh, God, it's over.
No, but then
I found something like that.
And then you find it, you find it years later, and you're like, damn, I wish I still had that. That was funny. But no, it's gone.
No, I found something like that.
Oh, really?
I don't know where it's at, though. I can't remember what it is, but it was me. It was like, hey, this is me. It's whatever, blah, 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 19, whatever. I'm sorry, it's more like, hey, everybody, it's me. I just got back from the Kiss concert. It was awesome. It was Asylum, so it was like 1986 or something like that, probably. And it was like, it was great. I bought a bandana. It says Kiss. Oh, it's rocking. They rock out. Rock and
You're
roll.
all excited.
All
Your
right,
voice went even higher.
Right, and then it clicks out, and then all of a sudden you hear like, "Don't tell me you love me." Thanks for listening to WGCL. You're just like, what the hell? I guess that's the kind of tapes I have. Is like they cut in between there where it's like, "Hold me now." Well, what's the matter with the car? You're just like, "Hey, welcome to the contest line," and all of a sudden it's like, reflex, dot, 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 and then it stays on, and then like records half a reflex, and then all of a sudden it changes over, and it's, you know what I mean?
You ever do those ones where you like hosted your own show like that? Like you would just introduce each song and everything, and be like, "This song is what I really like it. It's about," because you're trying to be the DJ and everything. And
WTON.
When we used to live back in fucking Michigan, our friends there, we used to have our own. We used to make our own commercials, like fucking Ford commercials, toothpaste commercials. We had all sorts of bullshit that we did, like jingles. We made jingles.
Yeah, I am.
Which is embarrassing.
Okay.
That was it?
Yeah.
We used to make commercials and jingles.
I don't know how we used to sing them. Otherwise, I would
really well sing one for
with
us.
Our singing talent.
Dude, I went into a whole taped radio bit. I mean, come on.
Kevin and Cease one time did a story.
Oh, the Amy Maholovic story?
Yeah.
That
That got so bizarre.
Kevin,
I'm like,
that wasn't right.
Speaking of the old answering machines that you were talking about with the cassette tapes, you used to call it Kevin's house, and you never knew. You know, like one time I called up, and all of a sudden it's just like, "Gurk, gurk, gurk, gurk. All right, the aliens are attacking. We don't know what to do."
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
We're all gonna run. Everybody's gonna get out of here. Holy shit! Look at you're just like there's people in the like Ceases in the background or somebody or Corber or somebody's in the. It's just like oh shit.
Yeah, well, he's saying my answering machine messages used to be pretty elaborate, and we did one with aliens where
I called from New Mexico, and usually when the fucking operator, because I was calling collect, and when the operator hears that, they hang right up. This one fucking hung in through the whole goddamn skit and was laughing her ass off. And I asked my brother. She's like, "Well, tell him I said that was really funny."
Yeah, and then we did a Viking raid one where my girlfriend at the time was screaming. She's like, "Ah!" You know, and Cease is like, "Fucking making all this crazy noise and stuff." And we're like, "Ah!"
This is the sound of Jesus spitting.
Yeah, that didn't go over too well. Dad didn't like that one. It was not good. But anyway, yeah, the Jesus the Jesus spitting one was
trying to outdo ourselves and stuff. I remember when my parents would go on vacation, I'd do the same thing. I'd play like King Diamond music and be like, "Oh," I'd be like, "Leave a message," you know.
Yeah, we used to get really elaborate with them. It was fun for but now with voicemail, it's not the same because you can't sit there and prepare. You got you're timed and everything. Leave a message.
Sounds like shit half the time. And
I
can't hear the music in the background. It was all like a bunch of racket,
bunch of garbly crap. And the Jesus spitting thing was. It was basically a play on a lot of the old movies where anytime Jesus did anything, like all this dramatic music would play and everything, and he'd be like, "Oh," and he'd like hold somebody's hand and stuff. So it was just a joke. It was like, well, what would happen if Jesus spit? And so we just did the whole thing where the music was going, "Oh," and he was, my dad completely did not like that. He called up and he's like, "I want you to get that off that machine right now." Or, it's just like, all right, shit, sorry, fuck. He was really upset. So
actually, the only one that ever got me in trouble was when I was living with Margie. She called home one day, and I had changed the message, and I wasn't there, so she got the machine, and it was the first time she heard our new message, which was, "Hey, this is Larry. I know you probably wanted to talk to me and not some stupid machine, but, I'm living with an 18-year-old now, and if you think I can't come up with better shit to do than answer the phone, you got problems." And she's like, "Change it. My mother calls us."
Yeah, so she doesn't know?
Dude, I fucking...
It's like, what, your mom doesn't know?
Yeah. I fucking left a message one time, and I remember it was my birthday, specifically, and this woman kept calling, and I was trying to sleep in. Finally I get to fucking sleep in. It's my birthday, and she had the day off. And the phone just kept ringing, and finally I got out of bed, went over and picked up the phone, and I'm like, "Who is this?" And they fucking hung up on me, and I'm like, bullshit. So I fucking looked at who called. I'm like, it was like some haircut in place. I'm like, "Hello, can we help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to talk to whoever in the hell keeps calling my house." And they put me on the phone with this chick, and she started going off. She's like, "You and your wife are fucked up, man. I want nothing to do with you guys." And I'm like, "Who the hell are you, man? Why do you keep calling? I'm trying to sleep." She goes, "People aren't right, and I want nothing." I'm like, "Oh my God." So I talked to my wife at the time. I'm like, "What the hell, man? Who in the fuck are you giving our number to?" She's like, "Oh, that's some Avon order." Fucking, I remember somebody I remember one of our guest hosts' wives at the time kept fucking calling my house and did the same damn thing over and over. And I had to finally talk to her, and I picked up the phone. I'm like, could you stop calling because I'm sleeping and I got to be up real fucking early in the morning. Thanks. All right. Name started with a P.
I had a answering machine message where I was like, with Cease, and I was like, hey man, hey, let's change this guy's message. Man, don't play with that. Come on, let's grab his shit and leave. You know?
Oh,
and it's like, all right, man, it's not even on.
Oh,
and that one was kind of funny. But anyway. Yeah, so cassette tapes. And do you guys remember the original Walkmans? Where you had the big foam pad on the ear, on the overhead thing that everybody could hear when you would play it. And it was like this giant contraption that was on your leg or whatever. It had a belt clip. And you couldn't put it in your pocket because it was too big to put in your pocket.
Too bulky.
Yeah, it had to go on the belt clip and everything. And the battery would last for about an hour. And then you'd have to change it out. Those were pretty
Your
fucking
tape would slow down.
Yeah, it would eat your tape. It was totally eat your tape. If the battery started to die,
always ate tape.
yeah, completely.
You're like, oh, here comes my favorite song.
Dude, I just found, because I was cleaning up the basement a little bit, I just found a
Candy bar?
tape player.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, who cares? Chocolate's good. I found this fucking tape player, and it had a flashlight, a Walkman with a flashlight built into it. And I'm like, it almost makes a certain kind of sense. I could almost see it being almost useful, but why would I want to wear headphones if I can't see where I'm going?
Right.
Obviously, it's one of those moments where maybe if I had to rely on my Walkman to light the way, and I thought about it later. I'm like, this is where they got the idea for making the cell phone so bright, so you can see where you're going. This is almost genius. I'm thinking of bullshit.
When Brian first got out of the Navy, he had a really bad temper and would break shit, and it would be like one of these
way
things.
Back then.
Like I would go into the bedroom and stuff, and I think I've brought this up before. And Brian would have his back to the wall, and he'd be like typing on the computer or something. And I'd come in, and the radio would be like the doors on it would be busted off and stuff, and it'd be all messed up, and the side of the dresser would be all scuffed up. And I'd be like, "What happened to the dresser?" And Brian would be like, "I beat the radio against it." Keep doing what he's doing. I'm just imagining in my head how furious you would have to be with the radio to grab the fucking thing and be like, ah! It's like fucking starts smashing it against the dresser,
I like to say that I've grown past that point, but my girlfriend bought me that keyboard. I may have mentioned this, a fucking brand new keyboard, and I was like playing player versus player, and I got stuck, and the keyboard started fucking up on me, and I snapped. Because the guy literally just set up a little turret next to my character and just let it shoot me dead while I was sitting there running into the wall, and I got killed. And I picked up the fucking keyboard, and if I were to show you the picture, you would see where the keyboard smashed against the side of my computer desk, and the corner of the fucking desk broke off because I was so enraged. And then my girlfriend called, and I'm like, "Look, I know you just bought me that keyboard. I feel really bad, but it's gone." It's like, "What do you mean it's gone?" I'm like, "I broke it." She's like, "What do you mean you broke it?" I'm like, I kind of smashed the holy shit out of it. She's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Oh man, here we go.
It has moved on. It has ceased to be."
Yeah, I mean, I did feel bad. I'm like, because she wouldn't buy me that goddamn thing, and here I go fucking just like, motherfucker, dumb.
So, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about different subjects.
Then I found my MP3 player too, which was
yeah. Brian used to go through a Walkman a week. I mean, literally, when he got out of the Navy,
because they were half garbage. I had one. That was good.
That's a good week.
He just smashed it. Because,
he would buy one. He would get one, and then within the first day, it would already have tape on it. Because either the door broke off, or the battery thing fell off, or one of the buttons doesn't stick or it doesn't work. And then 2-3 days, he's got this is the third pair of headphones I put on this thing. And then
And none of it would be cheap. It wouldn't be cheap shit. It wouldn't be some Grand Prix or anything. Brian always bought he'd get a paycheck and he'd go buy a nice one,
We worked at Hills.
And or he'd acquire it. through other means. But
well, no, I'm insinuating that he got a discount. Hello.
Yeah, and he would just, but yeah, like have nice headphones and stuff. But then there'd be just something would not work. The tape usually would get eaten, or the batteries would die, or something, and they would just be on the like cement. Cassette player meets cement.
Right. Yeah. It'd be like the batteries are dead. Oh, I got some smash. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it was always really hard for me to explain when people were walking along, and all of a sudden next to them a fucking Sony Walkman would just get like smashed into pieces right in front of them. Like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, motherfucking, son of a bitch, doesn't want to fucking play right. Like, dude, it's a Walkman. It's not a stereo. Shut up!
You guys remember, like...
with people, I was always good.
Change the subject a little bit. Do you remember, like, in the early days when you could get a car and you didn't have to take an Ames test, you didn't have to have car insurance, the car didn't really need to... Yeah, the car didn't really even need to have working much of anything, and you could just get a license and drive it. I don't know if that, but that was just how it was. You could literally go buy...
You could roll it right out of the junkyard, yeah.
Right. You could buy a car for like $100 from somebody, and it could be like belching all kinds of smoke and shit and be all fucked up, and it didn't matter. You were allowed to drive. If at nighttime it didn't have lights, you would be in trouble, but you could drive it during the day, just make hand symbols out the window and shit, and fucking and take turns and drive it around until it just completely died, and that was a pretty good market.
Having your kid in the back window with a flashlight shining in at the driver's behind you. I'm stopping!
I just my fucking brother, me, and my dad were driving back from Michigan. It was fucking pitch dark and a goddamn giant storm was going on outside. And I had one of those 110 cameras, where you could like reach in there. If you knew how to fangle with it, you could make the flash go off. I looked at my brother. They're like, hee, I'll be funny. I'll flash the camera at Kevin's fucking eyes. And I go, hey, Kevin, look, and my dad looked over at the same fucking time. And I can only imagine the look on the people's faces. It must have seemed like a thermonuclear explosion went off inside the fucking car. My dad's like, oh my God. God damn, I can't see where the fuck I'm going. What the hell is you doing? We were all blind. I was like, I couldn't see shit, dude. Like, what the fuck happened? Yeah, that wasn't a smart thing to do.
Yeah, no, it was because it made me laugh. That was funny.
All right, so
okay.
Takes us
to the acting.
Yeah, but it takes us basically to the early days. I want to touch a little bit in our last 30 minutes here of the early days of computers and how that all went down. And I remember Anderson had a Commodore 64, and
yes.
I was a big Commodore 64 guy. I had other computers before that, but I never actually owned them. I borrowed them from friends. And Brian would use my Commodore 64. The weird thing is, man, okay, in the early days of the computing, we used to have bulletin board systems, a BBS. And if you don't know what that is, basically before the World Wide Web and everything, a person would run software on their computer that would turn their computer into sort of like a messaging service. And other computers would call one at a time and connect to a BBS, and then you would be able to exchange messages and also download and upload games and play little games online. And if you had a larger system like I had later on in the early 90s, you could actually chat and do all this sort of stuff. And the funny thing is I ran this BBS called South of Heaven after the Slayer album when I was living with my dad. And my brother was home from the Navy and everything. And oddly enough, he started talking to this guy.
I was out of the Navy by then.
Yeah, whatever, right. Out of the Navy. Home from the Navy, out of the Navy. And he was talking to this guy that happened to be a parapsychologist. And so they would sit there and talk online about, like, the occult and stuff.
Moronic bullshit. That was cool then.
Yeah, and it was just, like, really bizarre and everything. And there was, like, these dating things and stuff. That was pretty funny because I was bowling with...
I wasn't dating the parapsychologist.
No, I was bowling with Larry's friend, Dave, and he was talking about Moonlight. From this bulletin board system that we both used to frequent. And I didn't know Dave growing up or anything. I was like, I know Moonlight. He's like, you knew Moonlight? Yeah. And then Larry had this interesting story about he had some sort of relationship or something with somebody on a BBS. It was weird. I won't say it in case Larry doesn't want to get in trouble because people are listening. But it was a funny story.
I hooked up and had sex. What's going to get me in trouble?
I know it's so weird though because you hooked up and had sex on a computer, not like
Sicko.
not like the
Okay, well, we
web.
didn't have sex on the computer. Like, okay, it's in now.
Yeah, but it's not like the web or anything. It was like this weird sort of like odd technology that it's like you had to be kind of
It's net send.
you had to be kind of nerdy in a sense to even get on that because it wasn't like something that was even remotely mainstream. Parents had no idea. I used to get grounded all the time, and I used to think that the BBS world was the best thing ever because even though I was locked into the house, like I could still get out and talk to people and do stuff online and everything with them. But yeah, in the early days, though, it was all about copying discs and all this sort of stuff, and go over to like somebody's house like Anderson, and Anderson would actually play the games. I never really played the games, and this guy would like win like Defender of the Crown and shit. I don't know how you did it because the load times were so fucking impossibly long. You would just like type in like load quote star
I was
quote,
always grounded.
comma 8 comma 1 and hit enter, and then you literally had like 2 or 3 minutes before the game would start. And you could just like go get a drink, watch a little TV,
Right.
go upstairs, and the theme music would be playing dee 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 dee
talk
dee,
to,
and then you would hit space, and then it would be like
Robin.
loading. And you'd be like, all
Take the
right,
disc out, flip it around.
yeah,
You're like, look, dude, if you put a notch on the other side of this one, you got a 2-sided disc. There you go.
Oh God, I remember that.
Floppy disk. Oh, yeah, dude. I used to play all those games you gave me. Montezuma's Revenge.
Ah, that was awesome.
I bought Ghostbusters. I used to buy those Marvel games that were like turn-based. They were like, what do you want to do? And it was like, you'd be like, I want to run to the window. Cannot do that. I want to run north. Cannot do that. I want to run south. It's like, what am I supposed? And you could never do anything. And it was just like
those were always the worst. You have to.
Then like
guess
5 minutes later, it's
exactly
like
how
you've
the
been shot.
Programmer worded it.
Yeah, it's like, what am I going to
Pick
do?
up the rock. Look at the rock.
don't
Get
know-
the
Grab.
rock.
I don't.
No. You have to say inspect rock.
Yeah, or
Really?
or there would or it would mention something, but then it would act like it wasn't even there. It would be like there's like a hook on the wall or something, and you'd be like, look at hook. I don't see any hook here. Well,
You open your fucking eyes.
you just said there was.
You open little computer fucking
You
eyes.
just said there was a fucking hook. I could never play those games. I could never understand the rules that were around it and stuff. I just couldn't get my. Like I knew kids that played Zork and everything and figured that stuff out. But I don't know. My brain wasn't very logical. I just figured at any moment, like I'd be playing the game and they'd be like, suddenly demons enter the room. One has a spear. He stabs you. You die. And you'd be like, damn. What was I supposed to do?
It wasn't even a question of logic. It was whatever the puzzle was, you had to solve it exactly the way they wanted you to. There was no wiggle room. I used to play this one, the Leather Goddesses of Phobos. And you had to come up with the most bizarre, ridiculous ways to beat everything because there was only that one way that would work. Because I'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to use this, and this is what I'm going to do. Nope.
Right.
You'd be like, oh.
And it had like some weird arbitrary time limit too. Like in a lot of those, like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and stuff, you would do like something wrong like once, and then it'd be like in the Gorgon or Vorvons or whatever, enter the room and you die. And then it just says you die, and it says your score 105, and you have to start over and shit. And you're like, damn it! Can't I just go back? Fucking horrible interfaces, They were so relentless, those fucking things. Maniac Mansion. Yeah, Maniac Mansion.
Oh my god!
There's a blast in the past.
Great fucking game.
Nobody gets past the telescope.
Yeah, you basically had to cheat, and if the bad guys came for you, you had to run away. Like, at least you could run away. It wasn't like you would do something and then, that
You
would
go
be
in
it.
the room and come back, and it was like they forgot about you.
All right, yeah. That game was weird because shit would happen in it and you wouldn't even be sure why. Like, you would launch something out of the backyard and into space or something. I kind of remember that. And you'd be like, I don't know.
Right.
What if I did? What was that? Oh.
Right.
Did I do that? You're getting locked out of the house, and you're like, now how do I get into the house? Do I go to the...
And they're like, you got to pick like 3 characters, but they give you like a choice of like 9 or 10.
Right.
And that was like, you know what I mean? If you didn't bring the right guy, you never knew who to bring. So it's like you always got stuck somewhere. You're like, fuck, I knew I needed the little bakery kid to bake the whatever, to do the whatever. Yeah, that game was frustrating. I've never seen anybody beat it. I've never seen an end screen or anything like that for
I mean, but there's cheats now, so you could just walk through it, but it'd just take you forever. But they were fun. They were really different at the time. And then you had like, did you ever have a printer for your computer, Anderson?
No.
Yeah, you remember those old dot matrix printers that would just sit there and and stuff, and it just you'd be like track your
the hell out of you.
And you would be like, I'm going to print some graphics and stuff, and you'd print it out, and it would be about the size of a postage stamp and stuff, and you'd be like, that doesn't look as impressive as when I first remember doing this,
Like, look, it's an American flag in black ink.
You get all these ideas as a kid. You're like, boy, if I had a printer, I could start a newspaper, and then if I had a newspaper, I could distribute it to all my friends, and then you get it and stuff, and you're like, this is too hard. I'm not doing this.
I can't do this.
I'm a
big failure.
This sucks. And you never do it anymore. You don't even use the fucking thing. I know so many people with printers, they wouldn't use them for shit. Even if you had like a school report, most people just handwrite the crap. Because by the time you loaded up the fucking word processor and put the bullshit tractor paper in there and hope your printer ink was all right and stuff, it'd just be like, it just wasn't worth it. Some misspelling would come up beyond it, and you'd be like, fuck. And then you'd have to like reprint out the whole thing. You couldn't just white it out. I don't know. I mean, you could, but nobody did. So, that's about it. I thought on the last thing, if you guys remember any of your early childhood toys, like the Tiger Electronics football game. I know we talked about Big Track and 2XL and everything. Larry, did you have any electronic toys when you were a kid that you really liked? Any favorite?
Yeah, well, I had the stupid football game, with the little red X's and O's,
Yes.
I had the little handheld Pac-Man where it was like one Pac-Man screen over and over again, but the ghosts would get faster. That was their idea of leveling the game up. That was about it though. As a kid, I didn't have a whole lot of the electronic stuff.
You just had those water games with the hippopotamus that you tried to put the pebbles in its mouth.
Well, I had the water games where you had to put the basketball in the hoop. I had that one, but
yeah.
No, I had like actual video games. Well, Dave had the Atari that we used to play. I got the Intellivision, but as far as the actual handhelds, I had the football. I had the Atari. I had a baseball one. And also, because I was a nerd even back then, they had them for football and baseball at least. But I got into the stupid little dice games where you'd like roll the dice. It's a triple. I wasn't an electronics nerd.
Did you play a lot of board games like Trouble and Headache and things like that, where you had that little bubble in the middle of the board, and you push down on it, go, and the dice would spin, and then you move the things around, and the dumb egg.
Yeah, I remember we had like there was like a baseball game sort of like that, but it was like handheld, and it was like had a little BB, like a steel BB, and you would pull it, you'd shoot it up there, and have to go like one of the holes and thing, and then you're like a little, like if it got on base, then it would fall in there, and then if you wanted to rotate the bases, you had to pull a little side switch, and they would like rotate from first, second, and third and stuff. It was like something to do back when you were in fucking school and shit, and then they'd take it away from you. That was pre-Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I remember Rubik's Cube, and they had all the Rubik's Cube knockoffs, like the triangle and the snake, and the chain link one and stuff like that. Missing link, and then everybody had that Chuck E. Cheese one, which was even harder because you had to try to line up all the Chuck E. Cheese faces and shit, and the pineapple on the one side, and rather than just colors. Yeah. I remember all that fucking bull. And then you would never be able to do it, so you would just take a screwdriver out and bust the piece out, and then you would crack all the pieces out, and then reassemble the fucking thing, and then smash the last piece back into it, and be like, look, I finished the Rubik's Cube, look what I did. No, you didn't, you fucking bastard, you cheated. I did not, I fucking did it myself. You know, you try to bullshit off, but it never fucking
Yeah, because then somebody else would be like, you know what? Try it again. And when they would go to like mix it up, either you couldn't turn one side or it would just crumble in their hands.
Yeah, I can't really remember too many other. I mean, we had the big track. We didn't get a lot of toys in my house. We had robotics, which was this kind of you built like robots, and then there was like motors and servos, and you had like this control deck. That was actually pretty fucking cool. Except we didn't have enough motors and stuff because we wanted to have. Basically, we were trying to have early versions of Robot Wars with it, but we only were able to give each person like one motor. And one, like, because one was like the wheel that would move, and then the other one was like an arm that would go up and down. So basically, everybody just made like the type of thing that flipped the other guy, you know. And
cool at the time.
It was cool at the time. So was crossbows and catapults, which was
I still have my stuff.
Yeah,
I still have my setup.
Which was this game where you would basically put together like a little plastic block fortress, and you put little warriors everywhere, little plastic warriors, and you had plastic crossbows and catapults with rubber bands on them, and you had these little plastic round, they call them carons, but they almost looked like a checker, and they were a little bit heavier though. And now you're supposed to use these weak ass rubber bands that come with the game, right? So you would just sit there and it would barely flip. The thing would be like click, and it would just kind of toss in the air and click and fall down on the ground. But of course, we got like the industrial strength rubber bands, and we like wrap them around the thing, and then you're supposed to like leave the thing on the ground, but everybody would hold the catapult in their hand and put the little caron on it, and they'd pull the thing back, and everybody like, oh shit, and they'd get out of the way because it would leave a mark, man. If you got hit by one of those things, it would fuck you up. And you would just sit there and
everybody fucking try to kill each other.
And you would sit there and aim at it, you just let it go, like, boom, and the thing was like, it would just completely destroy the fucking whatever plastic fortress you had. Just like, smash! It would be all over the place. But the problem is that nobody could aim right. So the thing would just go, pink, choo, boom, you know, and start bouncing off shit. You'd be like, look out! You know, fucking putting the holes in the fucking family painting and shit like that. You'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm nobody's used this, you know. But, yeah, that was basically it, though. We never really had too much. Brian had a Fire Away, which was like this, sort of like a Space Invaders handheld game that we played to death, because that
thing was so cool, man.
What was it?
I wish I fucking... It was like the ultimate time kill when you were a little kid. It was like Space Invaders, but better. Because they didn't come at you like a zillion dudes all at once or whatever. It was a really cool fucking thing to get to play when you were a little kid and you basically had nothing. You know?
Dude, I would go over to Clay Mueller's house, and that dude had everything. He had all the little handheld Coleco football head-to-head, yada yada yada. He had fucking a pinball machine, and he had like bar top versions of. It was like Space Invaders, but it wasn't Space Invaders. It was like a cheap knockoff, but fuck, dude, he had 3 of them sitting there, and you just had a bag of quarters, and you just sit there and put quarters in there all day long. And oh my god, no wonder I grew up the way I did.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I mean, you know, you had a bunch
I thought
Anderson's house was basically pretty Spartan, though, too. I mean, you go over to his house, and, like, the living room was nice and clean. He had TV, and you go up into his bedroom, and basically there was, like, an electric guitar in the corner. There were some drumsticks that I would beat on him with, and he had just a Commodore 64 and a TV, and not much else. Did you guys ever have, like, an Atari or anything?
We bought an Atari once the games went to, like, 50 cents. My parents wouldn't go buy stuff. Like, when my grandmother was like, okay, we don't need this microwave anymore, this huge, like, original microwave oven, you know what I mean? You know, the ones that, like, smell, you can smell the microwaves going through the air, you're like, oh my god, I'm dying.
That's
my grandma was like,
Kevin had.
Close. Not the nuclear one.
Yeah, that thing was godlike, man. It was, when it says 4 minutes, I was like, put it in for 2.
Right. Just don't even turn it on, just put it in. Just put it in, don't even hit start. It's fine. You'll be all right in a couple minutes. But yeah, it's like we were the family that, like, when my grandma was buying a new microwave and throwing that one away, we were like, we'll take it. And it was like, oh my gosh, we got a microwave. And then it was like,
yeah,
the guy who was getting the VCR with the wireless remote control and the search and the channels in the VCR and all that stuff, and he was getting rid of his top loader. We were like, yeah, we'll take that. So I came real late.
With the microwave, I remember when we got introduced to it when we moved it. When my mom was adamant that she would never own a microwave, and so she does now, though. But the step family had one, and there was always this talk like it broke because we put aluminum foil in it and stuff. And so if you ever you would do that sometimes by accident, you wouldn't be thinking you put the butter in there or something, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, blink, 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 like all this lightning's going off inside of it, and you're like, oh fuck. Because we just thought it was going to totally fucking break it, and fucking shut it off. You're like, oh, hope nobody sees this. I'm going to get grounded, Did you put that in there? No. You're lying. You're grounded. Go to your room. Leave the butter here. So that was my life. Microwaves are pretty cool. But there would be those certain things, like you put some chocolate in one, and you'd turn it on and stuff, and you'd be watching it, waiting for the chocolate to melt, and you'd have it in a plastic bowl or something, and you'd be watching it, running it for 20 minutes or something. You'd be like, why isn't that melting? And then you would shut it off, and you would reach in to pick the bowl up, and the bottom would be melted to the bottom of the microwave. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
fuck.
Oops. Yeah. My bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Big fucking trouble now. Or you put raisins in there and shit and watch them blow up, or eggs and stuff. Yeah.
My brother used to, I'd put food in the microwave, and he would come in, and he'd be like, here, let me set that for you. And he'd, push me back from the microwave and hit 999999 start. And then he would just sit there and hold me, and I'm like, no, you're going to blow my food up. I'd start freaking out.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm a real killer, aren't I?
No, it's, we never did anything really crazy. We were too afraid
I just want
of
acceptance from Larry and Brian. I just want you guys to be like, oh, that was a good one.
Larry apparently never had any dangerous microwave stories. He was afraid of it as a young child and never went near it.
That's understandable. I mean,
just,
Well, for the longest time, our microwave was bigger than me because we had the big, ginormous one, which I actually then inherited and lugged to various apartments and homes. But I mean, no, it wasn't that terrifying a tech. Well, the only thing scary about my microwave was it never occurred to me until years later that sometimes shit bubbles and pops in there, and maybe you should clean out the inside.
Yeah.
When you get black grease,
eventually you reach the point where you turn it on and you can't tell the light is on inside because you can't see through the window anymore. It's like, maybe I should.
Or you got one of those spinning plates on there, and it just immediately comes off. It's like gets up on the side because it's so much shit on the bottom of it. Your food's all over the place. You're like, God bless it. But they always say to put a napkin over it. So you put a napkin over it, and the microwave has that fan on there and stuff. So immediately
blows
just
it right off.
It's got to go over on the side. All the shit's blowing all over the place in there. You're like, what the fuck? Or you put plastic wrap over it, and then all of a sudden you look at it, and there's this big bubble of steam, and you're like, oh, fuck. It's going to blow, Like, boom! You ever do that? It just explodes, and somebody's, next to you, and they're like, what was that? Nothing. Don't worry.
Don't worry about it.
But the inside of the microwave is just, fucking a nightmare, It's it's fine. Don't worry about it.
These days, dude, man, you get fucking nuke food to put in a microwave, and it's use a little hobby kit first. It's some assembly required, It's first take it out, then assemble the tray that's supposed to go into, then insert this and that.
Shield.
Yeah, and it's the whole.
I'm trying to cook it. Why am I putting it in a shield?
Yeah, take the plastic off and throw it into the fucking box, and it's done.
Sometimes I don't even take the plastic off.
Yeah, just suck on it.
Okay, well, that's
to cook it, you jackass.
That's basically it for this week's Midwest Wasteland. I announced what the next show was going to be, and I've already forgot. Hold on one second. It's on the Blog Talk Radio page. I just want to tell everybody out there.
The next show.
Hey, Andersons, what's why don't you plug your show for everybody?
My show is called Tumbling with Tumbleweeds. Listen to it, or my daddy will kill you. It's found on Tuesday nights on Blog Talk Radio at 10 p.m. It goes from 10 to 11:30. Sometimes I'm joined by my co-host Jason Korber, who has gone all Delta Force and gone crazy and disappeared.
Did he disappear? What happened to that guy?
No. His cell phone got shut off, so you have to talk to him if you want to talk to him, you either got to call the house or Facebook. So,
so there's a lot of Facebooking going on because you don't want to deal with the weirdness of calling over there.
He's awfully stealthy. So, but yeah, Tuesday nights at 10. I'm pretty much always there. I mean, seeing as how it's my show, I usually try to get there a lot.
You try to be.
Yeah. It's nothing important. It's just what I feel like talking about that day. And sometimes I have funny stuff to talk about. Sometimes I don't.
You did hit a milestone, though, right?
I hit 10,000 listens this past week.
Yay.
I've hit 10,000. There's been 10,000 people who have gone ahead and clicked a button that said they wanted to hear it. How many times and how quickly the stop button was hit, I don't know.
No, keep hitting the play button over and over again. Okay, and they can get that blogtalkradio.com/tumble, right?
Yes.
Okay, so next week we have Video Game News Radio. Brian will probably call off sick. And and Cease won't show up again because his life's over now that he's got a girlfriend again.
He does?
We knew that was coming. Come on.
Yeah, it's
good for him.
Oh yeah, it's been over for a while. And then in 2 weeks we're going to do Midwest Wasteland, and we're going to be doing it on traditional gaming. We're going to cover things like Dungeons and Dragons, live action role playing, laser tag, hide and seek, spin the bottle, and other such things. So definitely join us in 2 weeks for all the crazy stories related to that. I don't have an idea what we're going to do for the subject after that fact, but I'll probably announce it on that show. Cleveland Sports Radio is going to follow at 10:10. So there's no other Don, so there'll just be a Don and himself. That's it tonight.
Just talk to himself the whole time.
Which he'll just go, I'm going to go take a shit. I'll be right back. And that's all you're going to hear for about 10 minutes. So otherwise, unless you guys got anything else, we don't have an outro. So, I did have just while I have you guys here, I did have one guy send me a role-playing game that you can play over the phone that's about zombies. I don't know if that interests you. Maybe one time during Midwest Wasteland for an hour we can try to play the game while we record it. Because it's mostly about storytelling. It's mostly narrative. Each person takes over the story and takes it in a different direction. So I will send us the information and see if that's something we might do as a fun side project to do the show. But yeah, okay. It might just be a disaster. I don't know if we could cover it all in 2 hours, but
we can play All Flesh Must Be Eaten, and people all over the world can tune in and listen to it.
Yeah, but basically, our anytime we've ever actually played RPGs, it's mostly about, are you paying attention? It's your turn. Are you gonna? He just did. No, you don't have. And it just breaks down to a lot of yelling, mostly with me doing the yelling.
I use my can of Blask.
Yeah, Brian being really drunk and then. Having eaten like 2 cans of cheese and like a giant bags of chips, so he's ready to go to sleep.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, age is a killer.
Takes a 40-minute shit in the middle of the game.
Actually getting up from the table to go lay down on the couch and nap.
Yeah, I was dead, dude.
It's like somebody roll for me.
Or when we used to play at what was that, Rob's house, and he had that big long table, and there would be some of us at the other end of the table just talking, like, yeah, so what'd you guys do? I don't know. And then at the other end of the table, they'd still be playing. All right, so what kind of dagger does he have?
Yeah.
Completely different game going on. Okay, anyway, we'll talk about all those in 2 weeks on the show. But that's it. We don't have an outro for Midwest Wasteland. Thanks, everybody. Thanks all the live listeners for joining us in the chat room and listening live to the show. Don't forget, Oblast is at oblast.libsyn.com if you want to pick it up. It's also on iTunes. Just do a search for Oblast, Oblast, and you can pick up the latest one there. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.